This is that 47A I bought here, I don't know, forever and a day ago. Come from over in Illinois. Supposedly, tractor come from California. He brought it back, and he said it had a flywheel knock. Anybody that remembers, yeah, this is that one. I tightened up the flywheel. The knock seemed to go away. But this is the one that I had to crank and crank and crank and crank on, and I finally got oil pressure. Okay, I started the tractor up, had it running, had oil pressure, and it developed a knock again. So I shut it down, and I've started it a couple times, let it idle, so it gets oil through it. A minute tops here and there. Long story short, it's been sitting over there for a year and a half. I thought I'd drag it over here today and investigate on it. Well, it wouldn't start, so we pulled it over here, and over here I got it to pop off, and I let it run for a little bit, and it started knocking pretty good, so I shut it off immediately. We pulled it on around here. I took this cover off, and it's not a flywheel knock. It is definitely a wrist pin knock on number 1 cylinder. So I discovered that, buttoned it back up, and I wanted to check and make sure that it still had oil pressure. So I cracked this loose here, and I cranked it over, cranked it, and it's back to nothing. So, long story short, everything else looks good in there. This wrist pin seems to be tight on number 2. It's tight on the crank, Everything looks good. It's definitely had aluminum pistons put in it. It's definitely had a crank put in it. It's definitely had work done to it. It's been a part, is what I'm trying to say. Now I'm wondering if the reason that they didn't sell it to the guy I bought it from is because they couldn't get oil pressure. They run it, got a knock in it. Then the guy I bought it from, I don't know. I'm speculating, but it looks good in there except for the wrist pin knock. And there is clearly an oil pressure issue, so it's going to go back over there, and it's going to sit for a while until I get a job, get some money saved up, and can do something with it. Unless somebody wants to come in here and offer me $9.5 for it today, and I'm going to keep the wheel weights. There's a steering issue on it. Needs to be addressed. It steers, but it's hard. It's sloppy. It ain't right. But anyway, I've got the flywheel cover for it. So 47A, wrist pin knock, oil pressure issue, steering issue. It's got the kicker clutch lever. Like I said, I don't know. I'd probably let it go for $9.5. I wouldn't take no less for it. I don't really want to sell it, but I might. But I am keeping those.